Go. I have done that
Why
before.
not?
All right. Oh, yeah. So before we get started, oh, I should probably introduce our presenters. So I actually have Joyce Johnson and Pamela, and I'm going to totally like mess up your last name. I should have practiced. Maya?
Mejia.
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 Oh, I knew
Yeah.
it. Who both work here for the Colorado State Library on a Growing Readers Together grant, and they're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get started, I quickly wanted to show you guys a video, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that this all works here. And when I tested this, of course, there was sound, but I don't hear any sound, so you all can pretend that there's music playing in the background. Oh, you hear it. I'm on the phone. That's probably why I don't hear it. Yay. So we just thought that that was a fun video to kind of get you in the spirit of today's session. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Joyce and Pamela.
Thank you very much, Christine, and I hope you all enjoyed that video. It does speak to the role of libraries and communities, and I think is a great way to kick off our presentation. I'm Joyce Johnson, and I am the coordinator of the Growing Readers Together project.
Well, hello everyone. As Christine said, I am Pamela Mejia, and I am the Early Literacy Specialist for the Colorado South region for this grant. And we basically give early literacy support for the grant and the library that are on this grant this year, and also other technical supports they need.
Wonderful. We wanted to start out with a story because we're librarians, and so stories are a big part of what we're connected to. So Pamela's going to share a story about literacy-rich environments.
Yes, so I just wanted to share with you a quick story about my years as a preschool teacher. One time I had this great opportunity to work for a bilingual school. It was a touristed region back in my native country, Dominican Republic. So I had kids from all over the world, Spain, France, Colombia, USA, Canada, Mexico, etc. So I have different languages and backgrounds in my classroom. During this teacher meeting that you always have at the beginning of the school year, I was teaching that year 3 years old classroom, the past teacher of what it was going to be my group had me all the details about my group. So we got to this little girl, and she told me, well, this one, she has not passed formal education. She hasn't been in the school system, so I don't know how you're going to do about her, but you're going to have a lot of work. So I confess, you guys, that my mind began to start creating the worst of the scenarios, that I will have to put extra hours of work to help this little one, and I will have to make differentiation on my planning, extra time for individual instructions. I was thinking a lot of things. And as a teacher, I was already putting limits on me and on this girl. So the first day of school came, and this little girl came into the classroom holding his mom's hands. And the beautiful girl just smiled at me, and she gave me a kiss and a hug and say, hi, my name is, well, I'm just going to call her Laura, but that's not her name. What's your, and I was like, well, I'm Miss Pamela, nice to meet you. And she just told me, you are beautiful, Miss Pamela. And with that simple conversation, that girl just changed my perspective. After that, I just saw her very confident, meeting her new classmate. And let me tell you, throughout the school year, she had excelled in all areas, cognitive, social, motor skills, everything. She knew numbers, letters in Spanish and English. She read, she wrote her name. She was above average. It was impressive. So during my conversation with her mom, I just asked her, what have you done with her? What are you doing with her? Tell me the secret, please. I need to know. And the mother just replied, nothing out of this world. I have been always with her since the day she was born, and it was just me and her, and we talk all the time. Even before she learned how to speak, we talk about colors, shapes, letter numbers, whatever was in her environment. And when she was watching educational TV, I was with her, and we talk about what she was watching. We read books since the day she was born. We play together. We laugh. We have fun. We go to the park. She hangs out with her friends and family. We sing songs. We draw together. When I do the grocery list and the to-do list, she helps me. So if we are not in home or in the park or doing errands, Steffi is always with her family or friends, and always someone is talking to her. So basically, she said, I share my whole day with her, and we always try to have a good time. So that school year, I learned more than what I've learned with all the theory in college and in my experience as a teacher. She told me not to set limits first, and then she told me that with a rich environment, with a rich language environment and conversations and interactions with friends, families, and neighbors, a child can have an optimal language development, and that by playing, singing, creating, and having fun, a child can have a meaningful learning that leads to a school success. That's the story I wanted to share with you guys.
I love it when they have happy endings. Thank you, Pamela. So we wanted to share that story as a way to really start looking at early literacy in a variety of contexts. And obviously the first place we're going to talk about is at the library. And first things first, we wanted to ask you all to respond to a quick poll. So let us know, please, what early literacy programs you're offering in your library. And you can choose all that apply.
Good. Outlet story time is winning. Oh, well, not now, not anymore.
I know, it's fascinating to watch the numbers shift. Okay.
Summer reading outreach.
I'm curious if you want to put some of you that have written in other, I'd love to have just a couple of examples of what else besides what's on this list you're offering. And I am impressed that 2/3 of the attendees are offering baby story times. That's wonderful to see. Unfortunately, I think sometimes we still fight that misconception about libraries being quiet places and babies being too disruptive to be in libraries. So I'm glad that 2/3 of us on this poll are offering programming specifically for that age range. We'll just give a minute to see what some of the after-school programs, arts and crafts, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Play and learn with a community partner, monthly play groups, a Lego club, very cool. A couple of people doing Lego clubs. Excellent. That's wonderful. Oh, read to the
Family leaders
dog.
unite. Yeah.
I love that. We actually just, for Week of the Young Child here in Colorado, we had therapy dogs come in and read. It happened to be Take Your Child to Work Day, so we had a lot of kids in the building, so dogs got read to by a lot of kids, but the original idea was for the staff to be able to take a break and go down and read to a fuzzy friend, too, so that's wonderful. Yeah, my daughter did read to a dog when she was little and learning to read, and I will always remember Tallulah. She was a great buddy. So wonderful. Science Saturday. Excellent. Thank you, guys. So let's go back to the slides. Perfect.
Okay. So we have another quick poll for you. And please mark all the answers that apply to you. So have you ever taken care of your grandchildren's, neighbors' children's, niece or nephews, friend children's? Let's see. Friend children's women. A lot of friends. You're good friends.
Yeah. Must be a younger crowd, not too many grandchildren yet.
No, not too many, just one, yeah. Okay, we wanted to ask you this question because if you take care of your grandkids, nephews or niece, neighbors or child friends, that makes you technically an FFN provider, a friend, a family, or a neighbor that provides informal care to another friend, family, or neighbor. But for this program, we call FFN providers to those friends, family, and neighbors that provide care in a regular basis. Example, twice a week, once a week. It doesn't matter, but it has to be consistent. If your neighbor works part-time and you both have made an agreement to watch each other kids, if your community don't have school on Friday, I know some systems have that already, and you are helping those days to a friend, a family, a neighbor, that makes you an FFN provider.
Right.
So we wanted to clarify this because maybe you already have them in your library, right, Joyce?
Exactly, exactly. The other reason to get clear about the definition is that FFN is a term that the early childhood world, at least here in Colorado, uses quite frequently to talk about informal or unlicensed child care providers or legally exempt from licensing child care providers. But it's not the way that people who are providing FFN care think of themselves. They typically think of themselves as friends or families. So for those of you that said that you were providing that type of care, you probably have never thought, oh, now I'm an FFN. Or maybe you did 2 minutes ago when Pamela was asking you to, if you've ever done that. But it's important to really understand who FFN providers are and to understand the definition. So there was a report done in Colorado a few years back about the status of FFN providers in our state. And one of the first things that it did was try to define that term. And I like the definition that they landed on because it really, rather than speaking about specific individuals, it really talks about that network, having that network of friends, close relatives, neighbors, who you know that you can turn to and ask for assistance and ask for support in raising your child. And so for the rest of the webinar today, when we're using the term FFN, we just wanted to be really clear that while we may talk about individuals like a grandparent or an auntie, we're also really making a reference to the whole network of friends and family members who support young children in a family by occasionally, on a regular basis, caring for them. So, and this is the report that I was referring to a little bit ago. And one of the reasons that the report was done even was because one of the mysteries around family, friend, and neighbor care is the number of it. It's very difficult to really get your hands around how many children in this state are, or in any state I would imagine, are really being cared for primarily through informal arrangements. The best way that we could come at that was to look at what's Colorado's capacity for licensed child care slots, and then comparing that to how many children do we have in the state whose parents are both working, and seeing what the difference was there. And so this report, School Readiness for All, came up with about 57% who must be accessing some kind of regular non-parental child care. So you can see that it's incredibly prevalent in our state, and I would say in most states. I mean, really, when you get right down to it, the FFN child care is the original type of child care. And well before there were licensed child cares that were routinely used, I'm sure that there were friends and family members and neighbors asking each other if they could help by watching their children for a while. So the other reason why it's important to think about providing services to this type of child care provider is that while Colorado has been the recipient of an Early Learning Challenge Fund grant for the last 5 years, and those resources have allowed us to do a lot to support the formal network of child care providers by creating online professional development systems and enhancing the quality of child care and our quality rating services. All of that is targeted licensed centers or licensed child care homes. And yet we know that nearly 60% of the kids in this state, or you can guesstimate that nearly 60% of the kids in this state are spending significant amounts of time outside of that system. And so if we're really talking about school readiness for all, we have to find ways to work with those providers as well and to impact the quality of their environments. And that was really one of the driving influences that helped create Growing Readers Together. And I think the need for connecting that through libraries is, as Pamela had mentioned a few minutes ago, these providers aren't on like some list somewhere where you can just sort of look them all up and get a list of who all is providing this care in your community, but they may very well be in the libraries already. And so knowing that they're in your setting, or very likely in your setting, it creates an opportunity for us to serve this population in a new and different way. But we have a few true and false statements that we want to get your opinion on too. And so when we're going through these next few statements, if you see again the icon of the person with their hand raised at the top of the screen, if you click on the triangular button next to it, you'll see a drop-down menu of options. And so as we're going through, if you agree with the statement that's read, you can check the green check mark, and if you disagree, you can check the red X. So, okay. So the first one, early literacy can be greatly enhanced by everyday simple interactions. What do we think about that? Great. Pretty strong consensus on that one. Yeah, we would agree as well. Absolutely. I think sometimes we worry about making things really complicated, and in reality, the simple kinds of interactions that Pamela's story highlighted, talking to children, pointing out shapes, pointing out colors, counting, naming things, reading together, those are all great practices that are very direct. All right, second sentence. We should leave early literacy to the schools. What do we think about that? Okay, you guys are remarkably consistent. We would agree with you on that one too. We think, again, everyone has a role to play and everyone can play a role. And as we've just been talking about, not every child enters the formal education system. Sometimes that's out of necessity and sometimes that's out of personal choice. So it's all of our jobs to help kids be ready for school and help schools be ready for kids. So, and then last but not least, outreach is not something libraries have to do. It doesn't bring any benefits to them or to the community. And pretty solidly disagreeing with that as well. And we would agree with you in your disagreement of that sentence. And we'll talk a little bit more later on in the webinar about outreach, but we agree. Outreach is an important part of libraries service. So Pamela, do you want to talk a little bit about the grant?
Yes, of course. So with all this above in mind, libraries were identified by the Buell Foundation as a trusted entity of intermediary organization to make this happen. So they identify that libraries have community partners and expertise in early literacy, and all that makes you perfect for supporting FFN providers. So the State Library, therefore, was invited to submit a grant by the Buell Foundation to create a pilot program, Growing Readers Together, that focuses on supporting FFN providers throughout connections with local libraries and their partners in community outside the Denver metro area. So Growing Readers Together seeks to use library resources and expertise to enhance the early literacy experience and environments of young children that care for family, friends, and neighbors. So every library gets the same amount of money. That is $8,700, which at 20% it's required that goes towards materials for FFN providers to keep. And how are we doing this? The libraries provide early literacy kits to each FFN they have already identified in their communities. So they have the option to use the prepackaged kits that the State Library has suggested. All these kits are research-based, aged properly, and proved to develop early literacy. They include books, manipulatives, CDs, activities, etc. Or they can just simply use their own expertise and set up their own kits. We really want to reach those communities that don't always get the same attention as the metro area. So that's why in this pilot program, we want to learn how can we develop this grant in each community, in each size community. So that's why we have example of libraries on big communities like Colorado Springs and Pueblo. And we have medium-sized community examples like Lamar, Canyon City, and Alamosa. And also we have a small communities examples like Ordway, Conejos County, West Cliff, Walsenburg, and Security. So basically that's the little brief of the grant, and we started with those community, this pilot program that is just for this year.
The one thing that I would add is, as Pamela mentioned, we have required that 20% of the grant funds, at least 20%, have to be used on kits and materials that would go directly to the providers themselves. However, we don't want the project to really just be seen as a giveaway, and so with the other money that they have, they can either increase their own knowledge of early literacy best practices, or they can enhance the library's own early literacy environment, perhaps by making play spaces and things, baby spaces for younger children, or they can invest some of those dollars into local partnerships and outreach efforts, so that as they're identifying who are the FFN providers in their communities, they're not just then handing them materials, but they're also connecting with them, creating relationships with them, and sharing with them the best way to use those materials so that the children in their care really have their experience enhanced and receive some high quality training. So some of the key elements that are in place that will allow us to do this, again, outreach. As we talked about previously, outreach really can't, or this project, I should say, really can't happen without a lot of outreach, because there is it's very challenging, as we mentioned, to find FFN. They may not be on any sort of list that you can just look up in the phone book, and so we have asked the libraries to come up with plans that fit for their local communities to help them conduct outreach and identify FFN providers in their communities. I'll give you a couple of examples of some of the things that they're doing, and then if anybody on the line has some great ideas about outreach, I'd love for you to just share those with us through the chat box. But some of the things that we've seen in the Growing Readers Together project thus far are libraries doing pop-up story times. Pamela mentioned Pueblo, which is a fairly large community in Colorado, and they have a zoo. And so the librarian in Pueblo is going to go to the zoo and do pop-up story times there. And so because that's a place where kids and families congregate, it will make sense that that would be a great place to provide some outreach services and just do a pop-up story time. So another idea that people have had for pop-up story time in particular is doing things like in the grocery store, right? Everybody's got to eat. Everybody goes to the grocery store. So that's another great place to find FFN providers. What other ideas might you have, either that you think would be a great place to try or that you've actually had some experience with and identified people? We've got at least one person, a few people typing, so we'll give them a couple of minutes. Health department clinics, the WIC offices, absolutely. Local community centers, great. Yep. One of the other communities in our project did a kickoff event the other night for some of their summer programming, and they actually held it across the street in a senior center, which I thought was great because it not only provided them with a larger space than what they have in their library, but it also created this nice 2-generation or 3-generation sort of opportunity as well. Town squares, yep. Anywhere where you can get visibility. All of those places are great ideas for outreach. Also, the other key element to having this project be successful, and some of this comes out of the report that I shared. These were learnings about FFN providers themselves, and one of the things was that they like to learn. They want very much to learn about child development, and they really want to do that in social settings. And so one of the things that we are asking people to do is to create connections among the FFN providers themselves. So for example, one of the libraries in our project is giving her kits to the FFN providers away on the same day every month, so that the people come back every month on the same day to get the next kit and to learn together how to use the materials in it. And so they're not only developing that relationship with the library generally and her as the librarian, but they're also developing relationships with each other. What are some partnerships that, oh, actually, here, let me go back to, and then partnerships would be the last one. So what are some ideas that you might have around partnerships? Who in your community might you see as being a good person to partner with or a good entity? And I'll give you an example here in this. I don't know if this is relevant in other states or not, but I know in Colorado, through the Child Care Assistance Program, families can actually select to have an informal child care provider, an unlicensed FFN provider, receive supplement assistance or money payment to watch their child if they qualify for the Child Care Assistance Program. So that might be the local Department of Human Services, obviously is the person that is paying those child care providers, and so they may be a great person to find a connection with or develop a partnership with. So yeah, early intervention programs, early childhood coalitions, public health, Head Start, absolutely. Head Starts are actually required by federal law to run waiting lists, and so not only might there be younger siblings of the children that are in Head Start, but for those families that aren't able to be in Head Start, they obviously have children that age who need child care and are going somewhere for that care. So that might be a great way to connect. The free summer lunch programs, absolutely. One of the other projects that Colorado State Library was involved in a few years ago was called the SPELL Grant, which was supporting parents in early literacy. And part of what that did was look at partnerships from a slightly different lens. And so we want to define a few different types of partnerships that libraries often enter that came through that research. So thank you, Terry, for answering Jennifer's question about MOPS. So, and thank you, Christine, for putting up the SPELL website. You can get more information about it there. But one of the first types that they identified, actually I'm going to put the first two, and then I'll talk about these, and then Pamela will talk about the last two. Think. One of the first types is a library intensive, and as its name implies, in that type of partnership, library staff are the ones that do the majority of the planning and the implementation for the program. And the partner agency is engaged and open to new ideas and activities, but they're also often unable to actively engage in the actual planning and implementation. So it's really more of a case of libraries connecting with another organization and working through that organization to reach a target audience. So some of the examples that come out of both SPELL and Growing Readers Together include we were talking about pop-up story times. One of the places that one of our current grantees is going to be doing that is at the Locals Night of a folk festival that their community hosts every year, and it's really well attended. And so at the Locals Night, it's a very small community, so it's a very big deal. Obviously, the library is not putting on the Locals Night of this music festival, but they will be there, and it's a way for them to connect with people who they never see or may never see in the library, as well as, just be another presence for people that they see all the time in the library too, just another way to cement their role as a partner and an anchor in the community. So that's just the library coming and presenting a little bit of information about its services, maybe doing a pop-up story time, but really just kind of coming in on the heels of the work that's being done to put on the music festival. On the other end of the extreme are the partner-intensive partnerships. And again, as that name implies, it's more of a case where the partner organization is directly responsible for implementing a project, and the library's role is really to serve as a resource and a support for the ideas, activities, and or instruction. And in this type of partnership, library staff are usually lending their expertise or their information about library services to the partner with working knowledge of some aspect maybe or element or community that they have an ongoing relationship with, but that maybe the library doesn't have quite as strong of a relationship with. And in those cases, the library might want to develop a stronger connection with that community. And so it's depending upon its connection to the partner agency to sort of grease the wheels and slide it into that other community's kind of trusted role or trusted circle. And so an example from our current work is partnering with home visitation programs. So in that instance, library staff are adding some information about early literacy specifically to the materials that the home visitors are already bringing to the people that they're serving, and they are going to be providing the information about the library on the library's behalf. So the partner is doing the work of establishing the connection with the families that they're doing the home visiting with. The majority of the curriculum used for the home visiting is created and developed and implemented by the partner agency, and the library is adding their expertise to that by providing additional materials and possibly even supporting that staff with a little bit of training in early literacy. So those are the first two types. And Pamela, I'll do
Yes, yes. So the other one will be the passive partnership. This in somewhat is a low-level partnership in that either entity is necessarily engaged in a new activity, but rather they have enough familiarity with the role of the other that it understands what it does and how to best connect with them. So examples include connecting with local medical offices to post flyers or provide supplemental early literacy information. Another example is conducting outreach via resources of the partner. And also, if you have the early childhood in your community, they have a listserv. So some of the example we got from the last grant, and that some of the libraries in this new grant are doing also, is that they just send the information of what is growing readers and what the benefits for the libraries and the FFN. They send all that information to those to the council, and the council just sent it in the listserv, which reaches over 3,000 people in a region. So nobody's doing anything extra or anything new. They're just using the resources that already have. The other type of partnership will be the 50-50 partnership. And it's an arrangement which is mutually beneficial to each partner, and one in which each partner has roughly equal responsibilities for planning and development, implementing events and activities. So example we have from past grants, it's doing a story time, offer a summer lunch program via partnership between libraries and local school districts, and special events being planned jointly between community-based playground and library staff. So when you're doing this type of events, of course the school district has to provide you all the information for the summer lunch, and they have to do all the process and step that requires doing the summer lunch, but you have to go as a library and provide the pop-up story times and give the information, what are you doing. So you have to also plan and take your time. So that's why we call it a 50-50 partnership, because everybody's putting a little bit of their effort to make this happen. So talking a little bit about this, partnership can always look different depending on your community. We have like some communities, small communities, that keeping it simple. Partnerships, it's even better because everybody knows each other. So having a partner, as Joyce was saying at the beginning, the grocery store or the pizza place, having them post your flyers, this may be even better or simple to keep it that way. So it depends a lot on your community and the reality that you are surrounded. But those were kind of like some examples we have from past grants and some that libraries are doing already too.
And as you can see, Christine has pulled up 4 different chat boxes for us. And so what we'd love you to do is and don't worry about like, oh gosh, is this exactly right? Because I know we just threw some really big definitions at you. But if you think that you've been involved in a partnership that fits into one of these boxes, go ahead and type it in there. We'd love to hear your experiences in developing and creating partnerships. So where do you see your partnerships falling? Are they more library intensive, partner intensive, more of a passive, or more of a 50-50? Okay, baby class with early childhood family education. Okay, so let's see. And Westside Community Center in Colorado Springs partnered with Old Colorado City Library. Okay. Multiple types of programs under 50-50. So it feels like people have had most experience where it's been an equal sort of shared responsibility for planning. Youth. Okay, passive partnership, our small town lets us post flyers and posters everywhere, yep. And a lot of times, Christy, you see that passive relationships really when it's about just that. It's about getting out the word, and so nobody's doing anything new or different. They're just sharing information. Oh, wow, great. A summer program at a planetarium. That sounds cool.
That's nice, yes.
Yeah. And a baby toddler story time with infant toddler connection. Oh, at library or senior center. Now, Monterey, I'm curious, when you say senior center, are you teaching seniors how to do story times, or are you presenting story times? Baby story times with PEPS groups. Okay, cool. Lots of great ideas. Story times at coffee shops. I love it. Head Start story times. Yep. Yep. Okay. Nobody's got any partner-intensive partnerships, huh? You guys are all doing the work yourselves. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Classroom visits. Yep. Oh, good. We've got an example coming up in the partner-intensive.
In the 50-50 partnership, Christy said baby bags given at the local hospitals. That includes information for new families.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Includes information. Is that also maybe an application for a library card in those baby bags? That would be a cool thing. Story times at local music festivals. Very cool. Excellent. I love it. Any other examples? Great. Thank you guys for sharing. Those are really cool examples. There's always so much neat work going on across the state and across the country. It's really cool to see. So,
okay.
Go ahead, Pamela.
Okay. So we have highlighted some helpful concepts to consider and also some ideas that we can maybe give to you that libraries that are not part of Growing Readers Together. So the first concept that we have from all this is that FFN providers are motivated by love and genuine desire to support the development of children in their care. So it's not something that they have to do, or it's like, oh, of course, they want to do it for love. They want to take care of the family, of the friend or neighbors. It's something that it's not so bad for them to do, let's say it like that. And some ideas that we have is consider adding books to your collection that highlights the roles of family members plays in each other's lives, and or the children's being cared for or by someone other than mom and dad. So books about aunt, uncle, my neighbors, my grandparents, and how they love me and how they take care of me. Include child development materials aimed for adults audience in your children's area. Some of the libraries are doing that in the children's place area. They have some adult information on including child development. So people, when families are over there with their kids, they can learn and read about it. So hold a special grown-up friend, family member, like grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, friend, and neighbor meet party, like so invite to the library my grandmother and do my grandparents and do a grandparents party and just have fun with them and maybe share experience and just bringing them to the library and appreciating the work they do every day with those kids. Another concept we have had is FFN providers like to learn about child development in social settings. So an idea we can give to you guys is we've wave child development information into all your children's programs. Talk to grandparents visiting your libraries with their grandchildren. Will they be interested in attending regular scheduled activities for grandparents or children together? Sometimes they want to be part of a group. Sometimes they want to be heard and share those experiences they have and daily struggles maybe they go through the days or experience. So maybe they want to get together and share those. So let's ask them if they want to do that. Connect with your local senior center. See if there's interest in hearing from a librarian about best practices for reading to young children, and offer to come to the senior center to present. So that could be a very beneficial idea for both, for senior and for the library also, and for the kids, because the senior are grandparents and they want to learn more about how to best develop their grandkids. And there's something they're going to be doing actually and having fun and helping those kids. And the kids are going to be having fun, because who doesn't like to be read by a grandparent, of course. And so there are some ideas and concepts we have just for you to consider.
What ideas might you have for, I think part of the reason we wanted to leave you with some of these thoughts was that, as we've mentioned earlier, FFN providers are always difficult to find, and there can be questions about, well, what is it that they really need, or what is it that they want to know? Because if you're working for a licensed child care facility, there's probably a whole set of classes on basic health and safety and things that you're required to take, but FFN providers don't have any of those requirements. So what are they interested in? And so these concepts came out of the report that I mentioned earlier. And so I'm also wondering if you all have any other ideas about things that you know from working with FFN providers in your library already, or ideas that you might wonder if they would work well with that population. So just add a few in the chat box if you've got any ideas that you'd like to share with everyone on the line. Got a few folks typing, so we'll give them a few minutes. anyone tried finding groups on Facebook, military groups, for example? Great question, Jordan. I know two of the areas that we're serving in Colorado Springs, and then Security, which is just directly south of Colorado Springs, both have very large military family presences, and so we'll see whether, I have not heard of them using that technique yet, but I think it might be something that we'll hear about more in the future. Great, but it looks like, yep, local parents Facebook page. Terrific. Asking at story times what other activities they participate in during the week. That's great. Susan, do a little bit of research while you've got them right there. Programs like Grandparents and Granola, great name. Friends and French Fries. Oh, I love all the alliteration. Very fun. Allows you to identify and gather information about how best to assist them. And the report that I've referred to a few times during this webinar actually did exactly that. They didn't have quite the cute names, but they went around the state and started with just a lot of conversation in different parts of the state, different languages, different cultures, just to make sure that they were trying to get a representative group. So, Amy, what is the group? So, yeah, if you could give a little more detail about the local Facebook group or local parents Facebook group. While you're doing that, I'm going to just go on to the next slide and just provide a few additional resources that if you're interested in doing continued reading about FFN in particular, the first two are, the first one is the School Readiness for All report. I showed you the cover of it before, and you can download it through the link on the slide here, also, or in the chat box. Also, the Sparking Connections Phase 2. That's a little bit of an older report. Actually, it's from, I think, around 2008, but it also was focused on FFN providers and really was informed a lot of the thinking that went into the Colorado-specific report. So those might be good places for you to start. And then also an example of a program that is going on here in Colorado. It's part of the Statewide Parent Coalition. They have PASO, which is, oh gosh, I'm going to forget the acronyms. I know I think it's Parents Advocating for School Outcomes? Maybe not. I know the last two are school outcomes. Don't quote me on the first two. However, that group offers training specifically for the FFN providers in areas such as basic health and safety, providers advancing school outcomes. Thank you. Thank you, Monterey. And they have a great program. It's an intensive program. It's like 12 weeks, and it's not a small time commitment, but it hits on those two concepts that Pamela was talking about in terms of the providers really wanting to do the best for the children in their care, and also being ready to learn and motivated to learn because of the love and caring that they have for the children. And so they are very willing to go through the program. Some choose to go on and become licensed child care providers as a result, and some don't. Some just want to learn the information. But either way, it's a unique program and a unique program model that you might consider checking out. And then lastly, and I just saw this one earlier today, so it didn't make it onto the slide, but you probably are all familiar with 0 to 3. But if not, I would check their website, the 0 to 3 website, and within the website search Family, Friend, and Neighbor, FFN, because they definitely have a whole bank of resources, of messages that they have developed just for FFN providers. And they're a great resource and highly thought of in the early childhood field. So I would recommend them as well. There you go. And if we've got a couple of more minutes, if anyone has any questions I know you've been answering some of the questions of each other in the chat box, which is awesome. If you have any questions for either Pamela or I, please feel free to write in the chat box, and we'd love to address a couple of questions in the few remaining minutes we have. No? Okay. Then if you can share one final sort of aha moment that you might have, or one thing that you want to take back to your library from what you learned today, that would be great. If anyone has any thoughts on that, I'd love to capture that in the recording as well. Thank you, Susan, for typing in.
And while you guys are thinking about questions or aha moments, this is Christine Krieger, and I just wanted to let everybody know that our next CSLN session is going to be on Thursday, June 22nd, once again noon Colorado time, and we're going to talk about how to improve our listening and communication skills in the workplace. And then just as important, if you have a moment to fill out the survey from today's session, we would love to know what you all thought about today's session, what else you'd like to see. The link is live on the slide, and I'm also putting it in chat. And then while you guys are typing, I'm going to go back to the other contact information in case you have questions for Joyce or Pamela.
AHA is identifying more sites for pop-up story times. Great, Amy. Glad you got a concrete thing to take away. That's always helpful. Passive partnership, sending early literacy info through other agency listservs. Yep, absolutely.
Yes, that's very helpful.
Yeah, and it's a great way to expand your reach. I mean, there may be some duplication, but chances are there will also be a number of people that you haven't reached. And just all the sharing of ideas generally. Thank you, Christy. I agree. That's always the best part of webinars or conferences, too. So, wonderful.
And Amy, I just did a quick search for pop-up story times, and it looks like WebJunction actually has a course that you can take. WebJunction is free, but it does require you to register, but I just put the URL in there, and they have a course catalog, and they have one on pop-up story times in case you're interested.
Great. Well, I think that's just about our time. Oh, whoops, sorry, Susan, part of strategic kindergarten readiness. Absolutely. Oh. That's great. Yeah, that's a big part of everyone's early childhood work too, so excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate your great comments and your thoughtfulness and the sharing that you've done with each other. It's been a pleasure to be with you today, so thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for your time, and thank you for all the questions and sharing too. Thanks.
I concur, and thank you to Joyce and Pamela for sharing such great information. And as we wrap up for today, I put my email in the chat also in case anybody needs a certificate. And you can just send me an email. And hopefully, as I said, the recording will be on the CSLN session website later this afternoon, tomorrow at the latest. And certificates, if you need them, hopefully by Friday. I'm out the next couple days. But thank you all for sharing your, or at least our lunch hour with us.
Thanks.